It's time for the Volquest Mailbag Podcast, answering your questions from the General's quarters every week, right here on Volquest.
Welcome to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast here on this Thursday morning. Eric Kane with Austin Price and Rob Lewis, and big shout out to Smoky Mountain Organics, East Tennessee's most trusted health and wellness store, focusing on natural products and organic remedies to a variety of ailments. Of course, a lot of us are suffering from those spring allergies. I know it's turning spring into summer, but you need to check out Smoky Mountain Organics if you're dealing with that pollen or if you're lack thereof. You can visit one of the 3 locations located in East Tennessee, including the location in Knoxville. It's across the street from the Trader Joe's. The address is 8018 Kingston Pike, or check out their website at SmokyMountainOrganics.com. Tons and tons, as you'd expect, of recruiting to get to here on this edition of the Mailbag Podcast, and we'll go ahead and jump right down into it. This is from Go Vols 2000. AP, I know we killed it in this past weekend in recruiting, but I'm still worried about 3 main positions: running back, linebacker, and cornerback. Any updates on these positions, or any guys that are standing out at these positions?
Well, with running back, that's to me the biggest question mark. I mean, what are they going to do there? I think the most likely, situations are Jeremiah Cobb, Deshaun Bishop. There's a kid in Louisiana that Tennessee likes. But again, I always like, I always kind of go back to, if you're a Louisiana kid and you're, LSU doesn't want you, what's the problem? Unless they're just loaded, and that's sometimes the case. Linebacker, you talk about T. Lander, you talk about Cameron Robinson, Tennessee's certainly going to keep swinging at C.J. Allen, and they got a shot there. It's just going to be really hard because Georgia wants him, and he's a kid that just has a lot of people around him pushing him to Georgia. As far as corner, Christian Conyers is going to do something in early July. That's Tennessee and Kentucky. Jakeem Jackson, Florida's pushing now there. We'll see. But, Tennessee to me was the leader as of a week and a half ago. But again, when families get involved and they go, man, it's just much easier to come watch you play if you go to Florida. How does that change things? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does. A lot to be determined there. Tennessee obviously likes Jordan Matthews a lot. A kid from Baton Rouge, that's a corner. Dad played there, I believe, but for whatever reason, LSU's not much of a factor, but Texas is. You're battling Texas there. So that's kind of those 3 positions. But I understand the question 100%, especially running back. To me, that's the biggest head scratcher of them all.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and we all make a big deal out of quarterback, and rightly so. But, man, guys, think about it and help me out with some names. If you look at, who's won this league in the past decade, teams with a lot of NFL running backs. Georgia last year with White and Cook. Alabama over the years with just a stable of, Najee Harris, first-round pick, Derrick Henry, Heisman Trophy winner, Mark Ingram. You better have some guys who are going to play on Sunday at running back if you're going to be at the top of this league.
Line of scrimmage, Rob, and you've got to be able to, pick up those 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s to extend drives late in games to either put the game away or to extend a drive to keep the ball to try to go down and win the game. So, 100%. You've got to be better. Now, I'll say this. In theory, Cam Seldon is both wide receiver and running back. And so he's a big kid, man. As Nico told me over the weekend, Cam Seldon is a grown man, and he is in a lot of ways. I agree with that. So, when you talk about running backs, you've got to also put kind of him in that category too, because if Tennessee's able to find a way to land him, he would get a real look there.
And Seldon's coming in for an official visit in June, correct?
Yeah, the 17th. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And kind of on that note, and you got to have a number of running backs as well, and that's something that Tennessee's coaching staff has kind of preached, that it can't just be one. And heck, Jabari Small, his durability is always going to be in question, so you got to have more than one. How many offensive linemen do you see the Vols taking in this 23 class? This is from Gaffney VFL 89. I think typically, guys, 4 to 5 usually. I know Tennessee is in on it, for a number of those guys. Not all those guys are going to commit to Tennessee, but like a lot of tackles, and a guy like Bryson Sanders is going to play inside at the next level. As we spoke on Tuesday, Lucas Simmons and Francis could potentially slide inside if they had to. But I would say that number AP, correct me if I'm wrong here, would be 4 for sure, if not 5.
Yeah, well, I think 5, but I think they want to take multiple tackles. Lucas Simmons is a straight tackle. I don't see him sliding it. He's just too long. But Francis could. I mean, Francis to me again is Darnell Wright, body frame. I mean, could play right tackle. I mean, in a pinch, he could play maybe left tackle. He's kind of like Cade. Cade was always a right tackle, a guard, or a center. He was never really a left tackle, but he could play it if he had to in an emergency role. That's how I kind of see Francis. I mean, he's probably more of a right tackle or a dominant guard, much like Trey Smith. I just think Tennessee wants to continue to swing hard at tackles, and that is, somewhat Francis, but it's also Lucas Simmons, and it's, Wilkin Formby, and it's Stanton Ramel, and it's Shad Umarov, the kid from down there in Georgia, who to me that's a Tennessee Georgia battle. Georgia's swinging hard there too. So yeah, I mean, they want to go hard on the tackles. Bryson Sanders is again a kid who could play guard, but is also a center probably at the next level. He could play center this fall for Baylor. So, athletic kid, big, and I think can really thrive on the inside. Smart.
This one's from Shelby R14 asking about who from LSU give Tennessee issues. I know we're not masters of LSU's depth chart here, but their receiver, Keyshawn Butte, I believe is his name. I mean, he'll be a first-round draft pick next year, so that's a guy that'll give Tennessee some issue. On defense, B.J. Ojulari is still there, I believe, and he can get after the passer. Of course, they lost a really, really good cornerback who was taken 3rd overall by the Texans, but those are 2 guys that stick out to me about LSU. That's one of the premier SEC West games this year, obviously. Aside from Nico, who is the most important recruit who is currently committed to Tennessee? This is from Stephen GD Free. I would
go ahead, give your opinion.
I don't know. I thought about this the other day. If it's not, I mean, probably Caleb Herring, to be completely honest with you.
That's where I was going to go. I would have told you 6 weeks ago when Caleb Herring told me he thought he was going to be the Nico of the defense as far as recruiter. I was like, we'll see. Like, you just don't have a dynamic, like kind of engaged. Like Caleb's, I mean, he's just not like a huge personality, but he's morphed himself into that. I mean, he worked it as hard as Saturday as anybody did, including Nico. I mean, he was all over Rico Walker, all over Sean Davion Bradley, and in a good way. I mean, those guys talked glowingly about, meeting Caleb for the first time, getting to spend time with him, being on the other side of Caleb, having another top end guy on the other side, that type of stuff. So I agree with you, Eric. I thought you might go Jack Luttrell just because his impact in recruiting, but I think when you look at impact and then, football player, it is definitely Caleb Herring.
Yeah. And Jack Luttrell's kind of been, the subject of some rumors right now, but he's done a great job of, being a spokesman and doing that. And he has been that guy for the last year or whatever. And he'll be officially visiting here in a little bit. But I was also going to say, if not Caleb, which was my answer. Now, Aiden Bustle is a guy that talks to all these offensive linemen all the time. Yeah. And obviously Tennessee's in on a number of these offensive linemen, like you mentioned. So he would be behind me. Rob, kick us off here. This is from Sam Smith, 2233. What recruit that came in this past weekend did Tennessee make the most ground on? Obviously, Marion Parker would be one name that jumps up the page.
Yeah, from the guys I talked to, I mean, it definitely seemed like Parker. And I don't know exactly where he stood on Tennessee before he came in. And it seemed like they were already pretty high. But I think, he had seen Michigan State recently as well, who he's called his other finalist. And it seemed like Tennessee really, stamped themselves as the leader. Because like we talked about on the podcast earlier this week, in this day and age, you just don't see kids come out a lot and name, their top school. I mean, it happens occasionally, but not very often. I mean, they enjoy playing the recruiting game too much. I mean, that's, once you start identifying your leaders, I think you get a little less interesting to fans. But he was pretty emphatic that Tennessee was on top. And from talking to you guys and reading stuff that you guys are putting out, it sounds like I'd put Chandavian Bradley up there.
Absolutely,
with him as far as somebody Tennessee really made a move with.
Yeah, I'd say Bradley's up there, Parker's up there. Slaughter's been up there for a long time. Anybody else Will Whitson loved his time here at Tennessee. Those are the names that come to mind. Anybody else, AP?
Yeah, Francis. I wouldn't throw Slaughter in there just because, they were
already been there.
Yeah. But yeah, I would throw Francis in there.
All right, two more. These are baseball questions. I'll get these. Better matchup still from Sam Smith for the Vols, Campbell or Georgia Tech? I would say Georgia Tech because Campbell's got pitching. And which team do you think makes it out of the Statesboro region, and how many SEC teams make it to Omaha? I don't know about SEC teams to Omaha, but I think the team out of the Statesboro region will probably be Notre Dame, or it could be Texas Tech, but Notre Dame was going to host. I think that was kind of an upset that they didn't get a host a regional here. So that my money would be on Notre Dame. Athrun has got a couple of questions here in terms of recruiting. AP, any reason Ramon Jefferson drifted away from Tennessee?
Yeah, he didn't drift away from Tennessee. Tennessee drifted away from Ramon Jefferson.
How many defensive linemen and wide receivers will be in this class? Tennessee took 4 wide receivers last year and a number of pass rushers, 2 interior defensive lines in 2022. But I think they'd like to take a lot of defensive linemen, AP. They
would. I think you're looking at 3, maybe 4 receivers, depending on who they get. Really, I think you're looking at Carnell Tate, Nathan Laycock, Demetrius Bell from Blackman. I think you're looking at, I think it's going to be Carnell Tate and then that next group of guys. I don't, they're not going to get Carnell Tate and Aiden Mizell and all the, all that stuff. So it's kind of like, and again, Carnell Tate's no slam dunk. I know everybody likes Tennessee. I think Tennessee's in a good spot, but Ohio State is not going away. They are pulling back around and taking a massive swing right now. So Tennessee's going to have to, withstand that over the next couple of weeks.
Who are the true middle linebackers in this class that Tennessee's recruiting? We've mentioned already a couple: T. Lander, CJ Allen, of course,
Cam Robinson,
Kevon Thunderberg. What's the status there? Tennessee still likes him, correct, AP?
Yeah, still recruiting him.
Okay. Update on Aiden Williams. This is from All Ball Recruiting.
It doesn't feel like much is going on with Aiden Williams lately.
Are they going to push for any new high school defensive tackles? There's a name that pop up all the time, and it's a long time before signing.
Well, Steph Green at Rome is a guy that Rodney is recruiting really, really hard. Clemson, Tennessee, Ohio State. Georgia's definitely going to swing there, but with the whole Adam Anderson thing at Georgia, you just wonder how people at Rome feel about the Bulldogs. I know they still love Georgia, but at the same time, it's one of their own that was kind of, pushed out, and maybe over time it comes out that he's either guilty or not guilty, but either way it was just kind of put in a tough spot, much like Tennessee was put in a tough spot with AJ Johnson once upon a time.
Hey Rob, answer this one because it applies for basketball as well. For your average recruit, this is from BFL_333. What percentage of your recruiting information comes from the following? We're not going to break it down in percentages, I'm sure, but the player himself, family, other recruits, UT coaches, high school coaches, and other mods in Rivals Network. It's a combination, but mostly from, I would imagine, UT coaches and the player himself, correct?
Yeah, I would say none from other recruits, none from high school coaches.
Yeah, like we said, I think it was last week. Sometimes, as AP mentioned, he talks to writers from all networks. Some mods from other rival networks will help you out, and that's cool. But typically, at least from my experiences, it's more the two that we just mentioned there. Thoughts on the running back board? It's Jeremiah Cobb, Deshaun Bishop, as AP just mentioned moments ago. What do you believe the coaches board looks like on the defensive line? Of course, we've been mentioning some names, and a lot of names came in this past weekend. But
I think the biggest thing is don't get caught up in the board, because you're not talking about quarterback where they're taking one. What's a quarterback board look like? Well, here and then here. They're taking 5-6 defensive linemen. So don't worry about the board. Just worry about, Marion Parker, worry about Hunter Osborne, Vic Burley, Keldrick Falk, Elijah Davis, Will Whitson. Just keep going down the line. That's all that matters with those other positions.
AP, I know these guys are technically linebackers or Leos, but are Harriet and Bradley not pretty much the same guy? I'm not saying you don't want both of them. I think,
but that's what you want. You want all those edge guys. To be able to go potentially James Pierce, Josh Josephs into Caleb Herring, Sean Davion Bradley, and maybe even Rico Walker. Like that's Tennessee.
That looks pretty strong on paper.
Tennessee for so long, Rob, has just struggled to have edge guys. And, they've had to make some non-edge guys edge guys, and they've just been okay players to get some real talent on the edge that can get after the quarterback. To me, is a huge sign for what's to come.
Another one from Shelby 14. How good could the 2012 offense have been if Derek Rogers had not been kicked off the team?
It was already pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That's CP's 1 year, right? Cordell's?
Yes.
Yeah, that was they were really, God, how many of those offensive linemen played the NFL? I know you get caught up in talking about the skill positions. Because
Fulton James, James Stone, Tiny Richardson never made it to the league.
And was the most talented probably of all those guys.
Yeah, I probably played on practice squad. But yeah, a lot of talent on that offense. Then you forget about Michael Rivera too.
Yes, you do. Good point, AP.
Of course, just couldn't stop anybody that year, but could score with the best of them.
Sal Sensei.
See, the checkerboard wants to know, we've talked about Ramon Jefferson ad nauseum here, but AP, is there anybody else in the transfer market out there running back? Nope. Okay. A baseball question from DC Vols 25. Try to answer it the best we can. How many non-seniors will be gone from this baseball team next year, in your opinion? There's a ton, like in the starting nine, there's a ton that can be gone.
Yeah. Left field, Seth Stevenson will be back. Drew Gilbert's gone. Jordan Beck's gone. Go to the infield. Trey Lipscomb's gone. Cortland Lawson, don't you think he's back?
I feel like he's back, but
I think he's back. Yeah. I think Jarrell Ortega is going to look hard, but I think there's the potential for him to be back.
I agree.
Luke is gone. You lose Luke and you lose Evan Russell. So right there, you basically, it's a lot of gons. Maybe you keep the middle part of your infield, but it's going to be made easier. Blake Burks will ship to first base. Christian Moore, third base or outfield.
Yeah.
There are going to be guys that have played, and that's what made this past or this year okay, because some of those guys had played significant roles, and all of a sudden now they were they'd played partial roles, and now they were into significant roles, and they're not just going from nowhere to somewhere. Much like next year, you're going to have a bunch of players that do the same thing. Does Kyle Booker finally get off the mat? He struggled this year. He was injured early. And, the other day he had what I call was a horrendous at bat.
Yeah, it was bad.
Down in Hoover. But, he's got a lot of potential, and it would not surprise me at all if he's one of Tennessee's better players a year from now once he gets his opportunity. So, again, I think, Tennessee will have to retool some things. The best thing they got going for them is that pitching staff's back. So, when you think about having all three of your starting pitchers back, that allows your offense to come along a little bit slower, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, you'll lose some bullpen arms, but Tennessee lost its starters last year, except for Blade Tidwell coming back, and didn't have him for half the year. So I couldn't.
You're going to lose Joyce, and you're going to lose Redmond Walsh, more than likely. You're going to lose Joyce. But I think Will Mabry will be back. You look at the other guys coming out of the bullpen. I think there's going to be some key pieces that are back, though. And look, man, much like Redmond Walsh, you can't understate his value. Same thing with Kirby Connell.
Mm-hmm.
Kirby's going to have that extra COVID year in a couple of years. He's just a junior, but he's going to end up having that extra COVID year. That's huge because he's not got an arm that translates to Major League Baseball, but he's got an arm that translates to having success at this level. So a guy like him is like Evan Russell. He wants to maximize his playing career the best. Having a guy like that you can depend on to come out of the pen for the next couple of years is big.
Yeah. And again, bring the starting pitchers back, the middle infield, and then having Burke in an everyday role, Jerry Dickey in an everyday role.
There you go.
And Christian Moore in an everyday role. You're going to be sitting pretty. We got currently in a better football recruiting program as of June 1st, 2022. This is interesting because, AP, you mentioned this team a couple of days ago, Clemson or Tennessee, because Clemson's been down in recruiting a little bit the last couple of seasons.
Oh, man. I'd say they're about even. like I think Clemson's come down a little bit, and Tennessee's picked up their game. But I mean, here's the other thing. Like I see this on the board all the time. Spire Sports. We just go buy players. Gotta go get players. Other schools are catching up. Again, they always were going to. Like every school that was ahead in NIL or perceived to be ahead in NIL, they were going to eventually get caught because these other, there was only so far they can go, and these other teams were finally going to get their act together and start coming along. So what you're going to see is more of a balancing, like it's like sifting through dirt. Like you're going to have a kind of a, have a good sift here, and it's going to, everything's going to kind of be on a similar playing field, in my opinion. Not all, but a lot of your heavy hitters are. Like, there are certain schools that are just never going to compete with the bigger schools, but much of the schools will be similar. Some may be a little bit better than others, but similar. And so right now, I would say Tennessee and Clemson are pretty even. Clemson's a hot team in recruiting right now. They were getting mentioned a lot. So is Tennessee. I saw a graphic on Twitter, and it was, kind of like, top 10 players in the country. And, Nico committed at whatever number he was. And then down at like 10 was Francis, and Tennessee's the projected favorite there to be, to kind of have that Power T logo on both that helps Tennessee, in my opinion, because, kids see that, parents see that, and it matters.
And AP, it's early, but for Clemson, Clemson has been one of these schools that has always, or not always, but under Dabo, when they've been really good, have been able to get guys to jump in the boat early, and they're sitting there now with 4 commits, I think.
Yeah, they've kind of changed their approach. I think they found their approach, especially like, on the offensive line, to be, probably flawed. Clemson's offensive line recruiting has been not very good. And, they've got a couple of guys, but for the most part, they've just taken a lot of bodies early. And then because they just want to be done, the coaches at Clemson, like they want everybody in the boat. Once they're in the boat, they threaten them with their life if they take a visit. We'll cut you if you visit. We'll cut you. You will not have a spot if you visit anywhere. And a lot of they were so hot for so long, and the really cool school, that so many of these players were like, scared to do anything. So when a school called that maybe they had interest in, they wouldn't visit because they were scared to, because they didn't want to lose their spot at Clemson. And I think what inevitably happened there is, they got into the season and said, man, these guys we took, they can't play. and like Dabo wasn't big on cutting kids. Now you've seen him do that a few more times the last couple of years than he had before. But I do think that Clemson has kind of reevaluated how they do things. That don't mean they don't want to get more than 4 at this point, but they do not want a whole slew of commits like they've had in years past, because, again, it puts them in a weird spot to whether they have to cut kids, and I mean a lot of kids, because they were just missing on a lot, or they take bad players.
Well, we got a couple of basketball ones here. This first one's from UT Basketball Enthusiast 12. Any new potential targets for the basketball team?
No, I've been asked that several times on the board. I don't have any names to throw out there at you, assuming you're talking about guys that are going to come in and roll right now. But I've said several times, this time last year, nobody had ever heard of Zakai Ziegler. So Don't rule anything out. Certainly don't rule them out finding someone before the end of August.
And obviously Tennessee showed that it wants a point guard and likely going to be the market for a big man. This one's from Hard Hat Vol. What is your best guess on the basketball rotation and starting 5 look like next season?
I'd really like to see these kids in the gym first before anybody wants to hold me to something. But Zakai, Santi, Josiah, Olivier, I think all 4 penciled in as starters. Does Coach Barnes pull the trigger and just start with that small ball lineup with Josiah at the 4 and play Julian Phillips, at the 3?
I love that as a changeup. I think that's worked so well for Tennessee as a changeup. And of course, injuries last year and in years past, they've had to go to that pretty routinely.
Yeah, I don't think they'll start the game that way. I could be wrong, but anyway, those would be my top 5 as far as minutes. And then either Adu or Euro's just going to start. Both those guys are going to play a lot, and Tyreek Key is going to get minutes. So what is that? Josiah, Santi, Phillips, Urosh, Olivier, Zakai, Adu. It's 7 guys, and I think guaranteed minutes. Tyreek Key, I think is certainly going to play. There's 8 guys who are going to be guaranteed minutes, and then I know they like Jamal Mashak, but who's he taking minutes away from there? I don't really know that DJ Jefferson is going to be ready to battle for minutes, and that's fine. Not sure about BJ. If they don't sign another point guard, I think BJ Edwards is going to get some minutes as he played 15, 20 minutes a game. I don't know about that. And I'm not sure that Tobe Awaka is ready to come in. I know the staff loves him, but I'm not sure what kind of role he will have early. But so there's 7, 8 guys with guaranteed minutes, I think.
Back to football, the Artful Dodger 7. Demetrius Bell, what's his skill set? He's a name that's obviously picked up an offer. He's been mentioned a lot here, AP. What's his skill set, and was the Vol offer the one he's been waiting for?
He's a wide receiver. Was at McGavick, now is at Blackman, and he's long, rangy, got good ball skills, can run. That's kind of his skill set, and told me on Wednesday that, yes, the offer from Tennessee was, he called it one of his dream schools. I'm not sure who the other dream schools are, but he said one of his dream schools. That was a big offer for him.
Camp season actually started yesterday. There's going to be another one on Saturday. Anyone that's coming up to camp this week that would commit on the spot if offered? I mean, there's doubtful, probably no. AP, you have way more experience than that with me, but I would answer that as a no, probably.
Yeah, I don't see it now. Antonio Cochran Jr., guy played Georgia, played for the Seahawks, played for Rodney. He's coming up this weekend. He will go through camp. If he performs well at camp, you might see Tennessee go on him. And I don't mean he's going to commit. I'm just saying that's a name to watch that does not have an offer that could by the weekend.
JD Vol 98 to the Vols, or do you think the Vols wear the black and smoky grays this fall, or just grays? I think you said grays in the chat, if I'm not mistaken.
I said no. They'll have both options.
Okay.
They were asking what is it going to be a new, are they going to look for a new alternative? I think they'll have both opportunities. You'll have gray and black as options. I think that's the big thing, is like have options. You might not wear black one year, and you may wear gray, or you may wear both, or you may wear, black and not gray. And that's the biggest thing that they're trying to do. I do think that, they looked at a chrome helmet, and that is not going to happen.
You wear gray on black, right? I mean, there's so many different options here.
I don't think it'll be gray on gray or black on black. They won't wear.
No, this isn't working here. Burrow Boys 615, couple of rapid fire ones here for you, AP. Carnell Tate timeline still the same in a couple of weeks, probably early July, likely.
Oh, no, I said mid-June.
All right, sorry, like mid to late June. And I forgot today's June, and it's not July. Got my date, my months.
Yeah, mid-June. And again, Ohio State's swinging hard there right now. So, all the people that just thought it was done, it's not done. Again, I think Tennessee's still in a good spot, but they're going to have to withstand, an Ohio State push here.
Could Tennessee go into August with half of the recruiting class filled, say about 14 plus commitments? I'll say yes. Because you're what at 9 right now?
Yeah, they have 9.
And they're going to add several in the next, 60 days, in my opinion.
Yeah. Which side of the ball has been more impressive once the class is all said and done, offense or defense?
Defense. I'm going defense. I mean, I think, and credit Josh Heupel. He a couple months ago, he really made a real effort to go hard on the defense. And it showed up. It showed up this past weekend with just the players they had in town. It showed up just kind of in translation with, who they're deep in on. So, yeah, I mean, that's not to say they're going to get them all, because they're not, but they're going to get, I think, their fair share of a group of kids that I think are pretty good.
Yeah, I was asked this question as well, and I think obviously when you have Nico, if you were to land Tate and Francis, I mean, those pillars on offense, that's fantastic. But
yeah, I mean, when you're looking at everybody's going to get caught up in 5-star,
yeah.
Whereas like
the
I'm
quality
looking at
of the high 4 stars of the edge players on defense. Yeah, I mean, I know what.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah. Last one, looking at your crystal ball, what is one thing you're most interested to see? Yeah, you do a 50 cent gift.
I don't do well, but again, I don't give away the kid's commitment, and I never give away a kid's commitment once he's told me what's going to happen.
So AP, let's just do a percentage.
Okay, go ahead.
Who are you most interested to see when fall camp starts? Christian Charles is for me. I can't wait to see him.
Oh, you're saying crystal ball for the season? Okay,
yes. You cut me off there.
I know you're right. I did. That's my fault. I'm gonna go James Pierce, man. I just think that he's got a skill set that, if he can put on a little bit of weight this summer heading into fall camp, which is hard because it's summertime, so it's warm, it's hot, it's easy to, keep it trimmed off. I'll go James Pierce as far as new guys.
I was going to say, is that only about new guys?
No, it can be about anybody.
Oh, I guess so. You said Charles. I think it's so hard for these kids to play in the trenches when they're first in the first year. But Tyree West, just how I thought he looked pretty tantalizing in the spring.
He's going to play, Rob. He's going to.
That's kind of what I think. I don't want to hype him up too much, but that's one guy I'm interested to see if he legit looks like he's ready to play some defensive tackle as a freshman in the SEC.
We'll go through a couple here, just a couple of minutes left. What's the latest update on the SEC football pods? They're not going to do pods. And your thoughts on the proposed permanent opponents? Still discussing the 1-7-3-6 at the SEC media days.
Well, they're not. No one's proposed these opponents. Like everybody just is guessing.
Everyone's assuming, yeah. Everyone's assuming that the long-standing Vanderbilts and the Alabama would be two of the three. But you're right, no one's proposed it yet. But I think those would be two of the three. And I believe if there was the 1-7 model, it'd be Vanderbilt, but we'll have to see. But it sounds like pods is not going to be a thing here, at least right now. I still think pods will happen whenever they get more teams in the SEC in years to come. Volunteers 52, AP over under 2.5 commits between now and June 25th.
That's a good number, man. Somebody asked me that in the chat the other night. I'll lean over, but it could easily be under. I think that number is either 2 or 3, and that's why I said that 2.5 number is really good.
Is Tennessee done with transfers that would be in for the upcoming season?
They brought this JUCO offensive lineman in. He's a guy. He's just a body, man. I'm not trying to poop on the kid, but if you're a JUCO guy and you're still out there at this point in time, you're just a body for depth.
And last one from Orange Grizz 91. Could you illustrate what the summer program looks like for coaches and players? How do players spend their time? What access are the coaches allowed to have with players? There's different phases, as always. Of course, they're about to start June term. It'll be a summer class. And then, of course, they can start workouts and all that. And for coaches, June is camp season. So, you're working like crazy and official visit time. July is the dead period up until the last week.
They get away, man. They work the phones in recruiting, but they take vacations for weeks in July, and they should, man. If everybody saw the amount of time, and again, I think all coaches. This isn't a Josh Heupel or any particular person. This is all of them. They all work stupid hours, and it's like really to me unneeded. Like if you can't get accomplished between 8 and 7 or 8 and 6, like getting in there at 6 o'clock in the morning, having a staff meeting at 7 and being there till 10 or 11 o'clock at night most of the year is just, it's crazy. But these guys work insane hours. So when they get a chance to go be with their families, they go and be with their families. Just like on Memorial Day, they went and they spent their time with their families.
And last one from Vol I Am. When do the dominoes begin to fall from the Memorial Day weekend? I think you've been pretty consistent in this, and
I think mid to late June is will be first dominoes, and then after that, we'll see. But I think July is more profitable than June, and I think June can have some people.
Again, movement nonetheless coming up this summer, following the big Memorial Day, a Rocky Topalooza, and official visit season coming up here in June and all that. We got plenty of coverage still with recruiting wrapping up from this past weekend up on the front page, and tons of baseball coverage coming up this weekend. As always, been the Volquest Mailbag Podcast brought to you by Smoky Mountain Organics. 3 locations in East Tennessee, including one right here in Knoxville, 8018 Kingston Pike, across the street from the Trader Joe's. Check it out or visit online. Shop online at SmokyMountainOrganics.com. For Rob Lewis, Austin Price, I'm Eric Kane. Thanks so much for listening to the Mailbag Edition podcast. Have a good Thursday, everybody.
You've been listening to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast every week right here on Volquest.